Trouble in paradise as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez essentially quits the Bernie Sanders campaign. And it's because Bernie, he's not far left enough, I guess. Okay, at least on some policies. So this has to do with a few things. After Ocasio-Cortez campaigned for Bernie and said he was vowing to break up CBP, she got a stern talking to from the Sanders camp saying it's too extreme. Because of that, and because Bernie Sanders proudly displayed the Joe Rogan semi-endorsement, she has decided she will not campaign for Bernie Sanders anymore. This is the story from Huffington Post. AOC has refused to campaign more for Bernie Sanders. We got a civil war in the Democratic Party. The far left is coming for the establishment. But now we have the far left fighting the far left. I guess Bernie Sanders is not what they expected or what they wanted. I don't know. I guess Bernie is trying to straddle the more progressive side and the establishment side, so they're effectively abandoning him. Well, let's read the story from Huffington Post, see exactly what's happening. They say, Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez turned down repeated requests from Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign to appear at events promoting the Vermont senator's candidacy in recent weeks, according to 3 people familiar with the discussions. After the Iowa caucuses, Sanders' campaign manager Faiz Shakir asked Ocasio-Cortez to stump for Sanders in New Hampshire. According to the sources, the campaign prepared a model schedule to highlight the kind of popular support she would expect if she attended, one of the people familiar with the talk said. Ocasio-Cortez resisted the entreaties until a few days before the primary on February 12th. She ultimately spoke the day before the election at a Sanders rally in Durham, New Hampshire, where the rock band The Strokes performed. It was like pulling teeth to get her to New Hampshire, said a second person who knew about the discussions. The absence of the popular progressive lawmaker on the trail in the weeks that followed was even more notable. In the early month that passed, in nearly a month that passed from February 11th to March 8th, 2 days before the Michigan primary, Ocasio-Cortez declined multiple invitations from Sanders' campaign to speak on his behalf in Nevada, South Carolina, and the 14 states that voted on Super Tuesday. The 3 people three people told Huffington Post. During that period, Sanders rose and fell quickly, going from the uncontested frontrunner after Nevada's February 22nd contest to a heavy underdog after a blowout in South Carolina on February 29th and Super Tuesday routes on March 3rd. I'm sure that's the reason Bernie is losing, because Ocasio-Cortez wouldn't campaign for him. No, they're not necessarily saying that, but I really don't think that's the case. However, I do think AOC is cutting her losses. I think so. AOC might not win her seat again. She might get her district might be wiped out entirely. This could be the end for her unless she tries to primary Chuck Schumer. I don't think she's going to win. I think her win was a fluke. I think the Democratic establishment was caught off guard and she knows it. And she's effectively cutting her losses with Sanders and bowing back. Now, I don't know for sure, but with Bernie no longer the front runner, she's not supporting him. And that's a crucial time where he needs her support. Sounds to me like she's not actually very progressive, is she? It sounds to me like her whole thing is just saying what needs to be said to get into power. Before she won her election, she was espousing tons of activist rhetoric. As soon as she got elected, she started walking a ton of things back, and she got criticized for it. Now she's walking away from Bernie. I think this is why. They say, as an embattled Sanders prepared to mount an unsuccessful stand against former Vice President Joe Biden in Michigan on Tuesday, the campaign again turned to Ocasio-Cortez for help. She agreed at the last minute to deliver a speech on Sunday at a Get Out the Vote rally on the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor. Sanders' campaign issued a revised media advisory about the rally the night before, informing the press that Ocasio-Cortez would be present. Neither the Sanders campaign nor the campaign office for Ocasio-Cortez denied the essential facts of the story. That's interesting. Instead, in a statement to Huffington Post on Thursday, Shakir praised Ocasio-Cortez for her work on Sanders' behalf, singling out her mid-October endorsement of Sanders after his heart attack. Sanders' allies credit the endorsement for helping revive his campaign. Senator Sanders and our campaign will never forget that in one of the most difficult moments for us, Rep. Ocasio-Cortez gave us a boost with her strong endorsement, Shakir said. And she has remained a steady and consistent ally, supporter, surrogate, and advisor to the senator ever since. In a follow-up exchange on Friday, the Sanders campaign affirmed that Ocasio-Cortez has been one of the most frequent campaign trail surrogates for Sanders. Ocasio-Cortez's apparent decision to avoid stumping for Sanders stands out precisely because of her intense work on his behalf in the fall and early winter. Ocasio-Cortez spoke for Sanders at 15 major rallies, beginning with a late October appearance in Queens that drew an estimated 26,000 people. She spoke at a number of smaller Sanders events as well. Ocasio-Cortez's help proved especially critical in January, when Sanders was stuck in Washington participating in the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump over the weekend of January 24th to January 26th. Ocasio-Cortez headlined 7 rallies for Sanders in Iowa and spoke at a canvass kickoff for his campaign. Although the Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez teams would not say whether Ocasio-Cortez's decision to avoid the trail reflected any dispute, the first source said a disagreement over Ocasio-Cortez's remarks in Iowa seemed to cool her on helping with the campaign. At a rally in Ames on January 25th, Ocasio-Cortez delivered a speech in which she failed to mention Sanders' name. That's really weird. An omission that Fox News noticed and highlighted. She also encouraged those in attendance to tip off people about the presence of immigration enforcement authorities in their communities to help undocumented immigrants evade detention. As Vanity Fair first reported in February, Shakir apparently communicated to Ocasio-Cortez his dissatisfaction over her remarks about alerting the presence of immigration authorities, while Sanders has sought to scrap and restructure the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency in its current form. His campaign has been trying to avoid the impression that it was encouraging non-cooperation with federal law as it exists, according to one source. And here we go. After that, Ocasio-Cortez, already annoyed with the campaign's January 23rd decision to publicize the endorsement of controversial podcast host Joe Rogan, grew less interested in helping Sanders' campaign. I'm sorry, Huffington Post, you don't get to call Joe Rogan controversial when he hosts the most popular podcast in the world. You are more controversial than Joe Rogan is. Joe Rogan is famous and popular. Calling him controversial is absurd. The only controversy is the one you guys made up. After her last event in Iowa on January 26, she did not return to the trail for Sanders until 16 days later at the New Hampshire rally featuring the Strokes. Lauren Hitt, a spokeswoman for Ocasio-Cortez, denied that the Congresswoman's itinerary reflected tensions with the campaign. Oh, come on. We've been hearing about the ongoing rift for some time. And the first sign was that she said Sanders was going to break up CBP and not to cooperate with law enforcement. And that's what we're hearing. And they yelled at her for this. So she's mad. And apparently she's mad about Joe Rogan. That's funny. The plan was always that she would slow down her surrogate work in February after Iowa to focus on her reelect and congressional duties. It's unclear whether Ocasio-Cortez's low profile affected Sanders' performance in the primaries. Sanders continues to struggle with older voters, among whom Ocasio-Cortez has less of a following. Her campaign trail appearance in Michigan did not prevent Sanders' double-digit loss to Biden there. Let me tell you the truth. Young people don't vote. Ocasio-Cortez is not popular, and Bernie Sanders has a serious, serious problem with surrounding himself with crazy people. Sean King, Linda Sarsour, Ocasio-Cortez. I'm impressed, really, Bernie. I'm impressed with your ability to throw all good advice out the window and surround yourself with fringe people who are disliked. Sean King gets ripped apart on social media all day. Ocasio-Cortez as well. Yet because they have followings, you thought it was smart to bring them around? Man, I tell you what, Bernie deserved to lose. Absolutely deserves to lose. You know why Biden is surging? It's because people who actually pay attention and who do vote don't want socialism. Young people don't actually know or care. You try and instill these weird values in them and they just don't care. They're doing whatever the TV tells them to do and it ain't you. So go ahead. Choose AOC to come around. And then when she rags on Joe Rogan, don't be surprised when you lose. It was smart. It's really smart of Bernie to use that Joe Rogan commentary. Now, Joe Rogan didn't really endorse Bernie. He said he might vote for him because he thought Bernie was honest. Smart move. Biggest podcaster in the world gave you a shout out. All of a sudden, Bernie's campaign surges. And then the people on the left started ragging on Joe Rogan and going after him, slamming Bernie Sanders for accepting the support. You deserve to lose. You all do. These young people don't vote. They just want to be part of an elite club. So they will kick you out at a moment's notice because they want to be in control. Bernie embraced it. Congratulations. You had a mass movement in 2016. You could have won. I think so. But today, we now know that white men voted for Bernie much less than they did in 2016. Yeah, that was surprising to me. Bernie actually lost a lot of support in key areas. And I think it's because he's embraced weirdos and strange people. In 2016, he wasn't surrounding himself by these people. He ran his campaign. He did really well. People were into it. I'll tell you one of the reasons I don't want to vote for Bernie. For one, he's flip-flopped on key issues like immigration and the Second Amendment. But he's also surrounding himself with people like AOC and these fringe leftist identitarians. Sorry, you can count me out. I'm sure a lot of people feel similarly. So let's just read the conclusion here. They say, while Ocasio-Cortez was staying off the campaign trail in the aftermath of Biden's victory in South Carolina, 3 moderate ex-presidential contenders, Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and O'Rourke, endorsed Biden, ensuring him wall-to-wall national media coverage that provided momentum going into Super Tuesday. So yeah, I think AOC's bowing out. I think she knows the Bernie camp is falling, and she recently said she'd actually support Biden if he got the nomination. Looks like she's going full-on establishment. She doesn't want to lose her job, so I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.